Hello and welcome back to Comic Literate, the podcast where we comically
and literally
review comics. That was my co-host Ryan, and I'm Jamie, and this week we are looking at The Punisher Max by Garth Ennis, the Slavers story arc.
And also, explicit content warning for this entire episode.
Well, yeah, I mean, that will become incredibly evident when we get into the credits, because it was written by
Are we not doing the intro music?
Oh yeah, cue the music! Credits!
Anyway, now we're back with the credits, so...
Yeah, it was written by Garth Ennis.
I mean, the reason we're doing it is because Garth Ennis is widely known and accepted as the definitive Punisher writer.
Yeah.
So, also, there's a Punisher 1 hour special coming out called One Last Kill, which I'm super excited
Ryan,
for.
I can't believe we would talk about a comic that has a popular TV show coming out.
I think it's just because I'm so excited about the...
I can't believe we would be so cynical on this podcast.
I can't believe all this extra SEO we're going to get just from doing this.
This podcast that we famously have never put a fucking advert on. I just wanted our audience to be aware that we've never put nearly 200 episodes, no adverts.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with whether we've been approached or not for ads. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. Anyway, so the Slavers.
We have been approached to do ads.
Oh yeah, no, we have. Yeah.
And we took the product and never advertised it.
Yeah, I think I've still got it in a drawer somewhere. Anyway, the reason we're doing this particular arc is because, in my research, apparently this is widely renowned to be one of the best Punisher stories in Ennis's Max kind of stuff, right? The other two options were the Punisher Marvel Knights, Welcome Back Frank storyline, which we have kind of done, because that's the bit where the Daredevil rooftop chimney chained to a chimney bit come from. So I was like, we kind of already done that.
We talked about it, didn't we?
And the other one is called Punisher Born. It's set in Vietnam before he comes back home, before any of the tragedy happens. So it's like a prequel, origin-esque kind of thing. But then this one, I think what we'll talk about is this is one of the most quintessential Punisher stories I think I've ever read. And I've read a bunch. So that's why we're doing it. And because we're doing the specific Slavers, because the art changed, the artists and colors whatever changed over the Max run.
Yeah.
So this one specifically is penciled by Leandro Fernandez and inks by Scott Koblish. I'm gonna assume that is.
Yeah, we'll go with Scott Koblish.
And colors by Dan Brown. Probably not that Dan Brown.
It would be unlikely, wouldn't it?
It'd be extremely unlikely if that Dan Brown. Although it would explain why his writing, the Dan Brown, the writer, sucks so bad. Maybe he's better at colors.
Do you think that? I mean,
it's widely accepted that his books are awful, right?
Yeah, they're not great.
Yeah.
They made for pretty average movies, but they weren't great.
Exactly.
Should we play some music off your phone?
I think we should, because I am dying to know. I'm very fascinated to hear what your general thoughts are. It's even more appropriate because Punisher was in the military.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, general thoughts. What did you think of this extremely Garth Ennis book?
It's a bit Garth Ennis.
A bit?
Well, this is the thing. It's just Garth Ennis. Like, it sometimes doesn't matter what he's writing, because...
Well, does it, though?
He just writes whatever he's going to write. He's just Garth Ennis. It's gory. It's a bit violent. It's Garth Ennis.
I think the best description I've ever thought of him is he is like an edgelord writer, but the difference is I associate edgelords with people who are intentionally trying to be shocking to get a reaction. Yeah. I don't think he's trying to do anything. I think this is just him. I think this is what he likes and what he writes.
Absolutely. And I think The Boys is a really good example of that. Preacher's a really good example of that. He just likes things a bit gory and a bit grotesque.
And he likes his characters to say derogatory slurs a lot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he also does write compelling characters, I think.
So I think this is fine.
That's fair enough.
I don't love it. I don't hate it. I'm very lukewarm on it. I think, again, for me, this is just Garth Ennis stuff. Like,
yeah.
I don't necessarily think it matters whether it's The Boys or this. If you want Garth Ennis, if you want gore and slurs and to
revenge fantasy and...
Yeah, if you want to read a power fantasy...
Characters that Ennis thinks are cool, basically dunking in many different ways on characters he thinks are uncool.
Yes. If you want to read that, read this.
And I think there is more to his writing than that, but even saying this as a fan, those are the elements that I think are front and center of
That's what
most
it
of his
is at its
writing.
core. There's nuance. There's obviously going to be nuance. Do I think this is quite good as Garth Ennis goes? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I particularly love Garth Ennis? No.
Did you say at one point, and this isn't a gotcha, I'm generally asking, did you say Preacher? Did you rank that as like one of your top comics?
Preacher's absolutely one of my top. But I think Preacher has a really interesting central observation, and Preacher has a really good premise.
Has more to say than this.
Well, Preacher is about one man kind of finding his place in the world, and it's about one man trying to define and understand his relationship with God.
Yeah.
At its core, that's what it is, and that's interesting. And I fucking love the Irish heroin addict who can't die.
Cassidy.
I love
the vampire.
I think Cassidy's hilarious.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like Preacher. Preacher's well up there for me. That being said, I've not read Preacher since I really got into comics, and I read Preacher as a much younger man.
We should probably do that again at some point then.
Yeah, so...
we should find the most controversial part of Preacher and review that.
The bit where Cassidy the bit where, I mean, Cassidy kills quite a few people.
Yeah, he's a vampire.
Or the bit where Cassidy sucks someone off for heroin and they don't give him any heroin. That issue's great.
Objectively funny.
That's really funny. Like, but no, I think maybe potentially if I reread Preacher as an older man, which I now am. I'm not an older man, but a man who was older than the oh my God. If I read it now.
I'm older than my shoes, but I'm younger than my hair.
If I read it now, I may not like it as much. I read it in my early 20s.
And you were famously quite an edgelord back then.
Yeah, massive. Don't, because they don't know.
I mean, me laughing after saying it. I think they know I'm a little scamp when it comes to that.
But to go back to this, general thoughts are, this is a very Garth Ennis comic. If that is what you're into, that's great. You'll probably like this. But it isn't anything special.
I think overall, what it delivers is what's special about it is that what it delivers in spades are the things that people love about the Punisher character. I think that's unique because I've been reading some of the Max stuff. So I'd read the first 2 volumes and there's like 60 issues or something, maybe more. 60 that Ennis wrote, I think. But so I read this and then I caught up on a bit literally just before you arrived. The comic, the story arc that I read that was one took place before this is Punisher gets enlisted by Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. to go to Russia to basically rescue the daughter of a scientist to get a sample of a virus. It's a very Bond-esque kind of story. Yeah. So across the Max series, there are different story arcs and stuff, and Punisher doing different things. I think the one I just mentioned would be one you would probably find more interesting.
Yeah, I kind of think that, and I suppose this may be why I didn't love this, is that I don't find the Punisher character particularly compelling.
Really?
Not really, no. I think he is a distinctly American power fantasy.
Well, yeah, we had this conversation before we recorded.
And this is my opinion on it. He is a bad guy who you can give a free pass to because he shoots bad guys. And ultimately, I think it lacks nuance. And I know you're going to argue that there are layers of nuance here.
Oh yeah, I've got notes, and once we get into the story, I'll be making those points.
But ultimately, I think I just don't think he's a particularly compelling or interesting character.
I mean, I agree with you on all those points. I still find him a very interesting character. So
absolutely. I either like my characters to have more nuance, or I want them to just be good guys.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think most people would agree with you.
And ultimately, I just think this feeds into a very Americanized idea of what justice is. And so I kind of... I think we're not going to be able to say more until we're proper into the story. Yeah. Should we talk about the art?
Well, and let's do a little interlude before we get to the art.
My musical interludes.
We've been doing them for like a month now, I think. Yeah. You keep getting surprised by them. But anyway, here it is. Anyway, so starting with the arting.
Yeah, we need to change the name now because we no longer start with the arting.
But it's once we're starting getting into it granular. You know?
Super fans. There are two super fans particularly that I'm calling upon here. You know who? No, there are three.
Yeah.
There are three super fans here that I'm calling upon. You all know who you are. Should it be starting with the arting, or should it be farting with the arting?
Or a third option, should it be starting with the arting, but we also have to sing the song, which is, and we're starting with the arting, right. And we're walking down the stairs.
Right, it was a fun week. It was a fun week where we did that, but we are not making it a thing. Artwork. I'm moving on because the issue is...
I think we know which way the listeners are going to go.
I know. And they indulge you too much. You are like that child in the supermarket, fat with an iPad.
They're enabling me.
Yeah. You're the fat kid with the iPad in the supermarket whose mum is like, it's okay, just watch your shows and we'll get you a McDonald's when we're done. And you're like, you're a bad fucking parent.
And one thing we know for sure is when you tell those people why they're bad and why they're enabling, they change their ways immediately, which I think will be reflected by the listenership.
Absolutely. They really love it. They really love it when you walk up to them and say,
tell them how to parent.
Your kid is fat and shouldn't need a fucking iPad to make it round Asda. Anyway, art.
Well, I was going to say the one, because normally I let you start on the art because you, I think, have more opinions.
I have more to say.
Yeah. I just want to start with first page. I was very taken aback. Not only was I already going to like this comic, first page, I think it's some really good art and great rain effect.
Yeah.
First page.
I really like the art.
Yeah.
I really like the art. I think it's really good. So I think modern interpretations of, is his name Frank Castle?
Yeah.
Modern
there was a period where they tried to make his name more realistic. I'm doing an air quote, and it was like Castiglione or something like that. And people were like, just make it Castle. It's fine.
Made him they kind of. So I'm watching The Sopranos at the moment.
Yeah,
they Romanized his name and made him an Italian American.
Yeah, I think
without making him an Italian American.
Yeah, I think they retcon it again. I might be completely wrong about this. I think they retcon again where it's like, some families have a different name if you go back several generations. Yeah. And they changed it maybe when they were on their way to Ellis Island. Like, let's anglicize this name a little bit.
Anglicize the name.
Yeah.
Right, so Frank Castle.
Yes.
I think some modern interpretations of Frank Castle naturally have gone a bit closer to very good looking actor was in the guy who plays him from
the current one.
Yeah.
John Bernthal.
Yeah. So I think in more modern interpretations they've kind of handsomed him up a bit.
Maybe, yeah.
Whereas here he's kind of middle-aged and balding.
Well, you know who he looks like here, who was then played him for a movie, Ray Stevenson.
Don't know who that is.
Hang on.
Wow, that's a face you've got there, sir.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so they were drawing... So maybe I just don't think Ray Stevenson is very handsome.
I mean, the Punisher is not known as a handsome character.
No, but the more recent versions of him I've seen floating around the internet, they've handsomed him up a little bit, whereas here he's kind of middle-aged and balding, which is what he should look like.
Yeah, I think the Max has. And what's interesting as well, to do with his age, is this is one where he is still having been in Vietnam. So he's at least, if he did Vietnam like early 20s, he's at least 50 in this. This takes place in the early 2000s when it came out. So he's at least early 50s in this comic.
Older.
Yeah, maybe older.
To have been a 20-something in Vietnam, which was 1964 to like 1960.
He was there towards the end, apparently.
Right.
So let's say 73, 75, like around then.
Right. Yeah, he would be in his late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, he's around there. So he looks how he
he looks good for his age in that case, but he looks older.
But he's also that peak physical guy without a super soldier serum.
So this is one of the things that I will say for Garth Ennis. Does have a knack of finding fun artists to work with.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
The Preacher always looked incredible.
Yeah.
From what I remember, Preacher was like gory but vivid. This is well drawn. Again, it falls into a little bit of that kind of what we saw with that fucking Iron Man comic we spoke about a few weeks ago, where it's like they're kind of having a stab at something a bit more photorealistic and not really hitting it. And so there's loads of jank all over the shop. Faces look weird shaped faces.
Except the Punisher. I think he's the only one who never has any jank. And I think that the focus was he needs to look cool every panel.
Well, because it's Garth Ennis.
Exactly.
And Garth Ennis is like...
If there's one art, no. Yeah, like, you can do anything else.
But this is my guy who, to be honest with you, his main characters are often just a mouthpiece for him and his opinions.
Yep,
he needs to be really cool.
He's mine and I love him and no one else can hurt him.
He needs to be really cool. He needs to be like a middle-aged man in a leather jacket because I'm Garth Ennis and that's what I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Or like a southern gentleman in a white suit with black tip collars because I'm really cool. Anyway.
He's tough and he's mean and he's cool. Like that.
I think Garth Ennis' work and Garth Ennis in general, he has this sort of now outdated idea of masculinity and what it is to be a man. But then, as evidenced by the fact that he picks a black gay guy and has somebody beat the shit out of him in the first few issues. Like,
true, but then, like, if talking about the masculinity, the boys, Billy Butcher in the boys was a lot of people thought was the Punisher insert character because he looks like the Punisher with the long black jacket and kicking the ass of the superheroes.
Yeah,
basically, it was almost like he was doing with the boys what he wasn't allowed to do with the Punisher at Marvel.
Yes,
right. But people look at that and say, "Oh, Billy Butcher's one of the main characters. He's overly masculine and, ideas of masculinity." But the real main character is Wee Huey, who is short and small and sensitive and is actually the moral compass of the show and of the show and the comic. And in the end, is like the prevailing moral like victor because he's, nicer guy and stuff and doesn't get corrupted by Billy Butcher's overly masculine, vengeful ways.
I don't know that he's the character that Garth Ennis really enjoyed writing, though.
But he wrote him as the best character, and as in the best, the winner at the end and the one who saves the day and stuff.
Potentially, but we've moved out of art clearly.
Let me see if I got some notes. You're doing the whole are we done? Like when I tried to move on last time, and you were like, I thought we're done when you say we're done, are we? I'm doing that to you now, is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, now you're just asserting that we're only done when you say you're done.
Yeah, but you did that to me in the last episode.
In service of my point. Yeah. In service of the point I made.
What I'm saying is...
Ryan's podcast, I just turn up every week.
Maybe neither of us should assume we're done until checking with the other.
Fuck, but then we'd spend the whole time being like, do you consent?
You done? Am I done?
Do you consent to talking about story?
And then it would just be a back and forth of us asking if we're done yet.
Yeah, it would just be constant.
Which is like an overly polite gay couple.
Is that not what we are, Ryan?
That's a British gay couple, and that's fine because it's a British joke.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But I suppose the thing that I have to say about the art is that there's many jank.
Yes.
But overwhelmingly, I like it.
Yep.
One of the things that Garth Ennis does quite well is pick artists to work with.
Yes.
And he picked a fun artist for this, and the art works.
And maybe artists have a thing where they're like, I get to write for Ennis, and I get to draw for Ennis, and I can draw the craziest stuff. Like, even if they're not into, again, the same stuff in stories, if you get the offer of, what if a guy got impaled by a dick or something? And I think that happens in The Boys at some point or whatever.
It does.
But as an artist, you're like, when am I going to get a chance to do that again?
When am I going to get... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The only point I was going to make, and it's more to do with layout, and it's kind of the bridge to story, the narration. I think it's interesting with The Punisher that a lot of his narration, there are exceptions, but a lot of his narration is very short and sweet. So it's not running like we've known some other writers who've done, Tom King, who have done entire paragraphs of narration over panels.
Should we start with the narration, though?
Sure.
Just so old hat.
Should we start with some kind of trigger warning if we're going to be talking about some of the stuff in the story?
No, we'll do it when we get to it.
Okay.
The narration is one of the things I don't like.
Okay.
Because it does and back when I was doing this, it does the thing that we both say we don't like in narration.
Which is?
Back here and I met the girl and we did the thing,
I mean, what I don't like about narration, which I think I've made clear, is I don't like when it's like, all that stuff happened, but now I'm back and let's see what's going on. And let's see what the day's got for me now. This is more just past tense, recollecting in the future what's happened.
Yeah, I found it a bit brooding.
And that's fine, but that's the only reason, the reason I compliment it at all is I just like, if there is going to be narration, I prefer they're short and sweet. If it's short and sweet, at least it's not taking up so much and it's quick to pass through. Yeah. So
each of its utterances is short, but it's dense with it.
Oh, there's a lot.
Every other fucking panel has Frank Castle muttering something under his breath. I just think it's overly narrated. I don't think it adds anything. What it does is it makes the comic more chewy. It makes it more dense than it really needs to be because there is already quite a lot of dialogue, and there's already quite a lot of dialogue where people are telling you what they're thinking and what they're doing. And also don't really like Frank Castle.
I mean, your mileage is going to vary depending on your affinity for the character.
Yeah, I just find him a bit brooding and a bit fucking serious. In in a world of brooding superheroes, be more Dick Grayson.
I mean, the way I think of it more is the variety of superheroes is its best aspect. So if you don't like this kind of thing, you get a Dick Grayson. If you prefer this kind of thing, you get Batman and Daredevil and Batman.
Yeah, he's a bit brooding. He's a bit gruff and serious. I don't like it.
Yeah, but it does sound like, again, if you liked the character and what they were saying, you'd be totally fine with it, or even enjoy the narration. Like it's about how you feel about the character.
Yeah, potentially.
The only reason I was complimenting
it's hard for me to
be objective. Which and I'm not saying that's an insult. I think that's everyone has that problem. Like no one can be truly objective with stuff.
Yes.
So it's about when I say things like it's a bit of me. Like I'm saying,
Well,
I
yeah,
like
I'm
it because
aware.
it goes with my.
That being said, something I am able to objectively say is like how well written I think it is, and I don't
True.
think it's particularly well written. I don't think any of the dialogue or any of what Frank Castle's saying is particularly well written.
I think it's accurately. It's very again quintessentially the Punisher character. I think it's, but maybe that's because Ennis has kind of defined the character by writing the most.
Well, yeah,
well-known
absolutely.
stuff.
Like, this is quintessentially the Punisher because this is essentially now the archetype for everything that came after it,
Yeah,
right? Like,
sure.
this is what everybody... You go to Marvel to write Punisher, and somebody at Marvel slaps a copy of this on your desk and goes, by the way, this is the style guide for Punisher.
Yeah,
Here's Garth Ennis 2013, this is what Punisher has to look like.
yeah.
So I don't necessarily know that that's... I don't know that it really says anything about it to say that it's quintessentially Punisher, because what is quintessentially Punisher is essentially this.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know if it's as much of like that they're saying you should write like this, or if it's more of like this is what sold well. We've had other people who have written differently and it didn't sell as well. So
yeah, I was being hyperbolic for dramatic effect.
Sure.
What I'm saying is, I don't think the dialogue's great. I don't think Frank Castle's particularly well written here.
Right.
Like I just honestly, mate, it's hard because my actual opinion is meh. But I'm here on a podcast, I have to have opinions. And so because it was just meh, most of my opinion, I don't particularly dislike it. I just don't think it's very good.
Okay, well, I'll say why I liked it.
Go for it.
And again, I wouldn't even say it's well written. I'm not even going to go out to that way. But what I say is why I enjoyed it. And I also agree, I think there could be a lot less. I think it would be a less is more kind of thing if they took less of the narration out, and what would remain would have a lot more impact. So I agree with you on that.
And
front.
again, with a brooding character,
yes,
you need them to be quiet and stoic. Because if you have a character who is a bit grumpy and a bit broody, and then they talk a lot, very much like me right now.
Yeah.
I am doing the same thing that the comic is doing. I'm grumpy, and I won't shut my fucking mouth.
I mean, he's way more grumpy and gruff than you are. If that's a compliment, then take it.
Yeah, but yeah, he's very, very gruff and very grumpy, and he won't shut his fucking gob. And I think
in his own head.
In his own head, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think it would have been in service of the character a bit more if our Garth Ennis had made him a bit more stoic.
Yeah. But then again, our stoic people just chatterboxes in their own heads, as opposed to just talking out loud, you know? Like,
okay, that's a valid point, but
But what you show in the comic is where they could have made the difference.
Yes.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think less would have been more. It would have been better. But what I do appreciate is sometimes there are lines that give an insight into a character who I find more compelling than a lot of people. So things like one of the first scenes is a woman open fires on a bunch of mobsters that the Punisher was going to kill. And they've ganged up on her at the end of an alley. He's going to help. Hearing in his head his little bit of like, I had to get down, get a better angle. If he had just shown up like behind the mobster and started killing them, like that would have been, I think, more like over masculine, like he's completely silent and then he just kills a bunch of bad guys. Hearing his kind of inner monologue of like, I need to get down because if I shoot this way, I might get her. Like that kind of stuff is more interesting to me, like how he's working things out.
Yeah.
And again, but that's not all narration, and which is why I said less would have been better. Because if you left in those bits, it would have felt more like seeing his process on the inside without having to worry about all the stuff like this city, I was going to kill this piece of trash and, you know, that kind of stuff.
As I recall, we saw Bond's interior monologue in Garth Ennis' Bond,
yes.
didn't we? But he kept, because you have to keep Bond stoic. Bond needs to remain stoic.
Yeah.
And so he wrote quite a stoic, he found the balance writing Bond. So we know he can do it.
But then that maybe to him, that's how he viewed Bond, but he views other characters differently.
It's interesting that Garth Ennis wrote a good Bond because he didn't go too far.
Yeah,
and he did here.
We were surprised when we read it. I was like, I was not expecting this when we read it.
Because, so, I suppose...
I mean, to give an example of like narration I think was a bit much, in that same scene, one of the mobsters is crying and praying, and Punisher's doing a whole thing of like, he's saying a different language, but I recognize it's the Lord's Prayer, I recognize any language, I wait till the line about forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. So that stuff, I think you could have taken all that out, and that scene would have looked cooler if it was just his logistics in approaching them, and then silence, and then him talking to the woman afterwards.
Yeah, I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
I just think less of the inside of Frank Castle's head would have made this
better. Yeah, I agree.
A more well-realised story. Now, that being said, again, I don't think all that much of his dialogue here. I don't think it's necessarily bad.
Oh, no. Yeah.
It's just not... I think Garth Ennis uses 3 words where he could use 1 sometimes.
Sure.
So some of his characters end up coming off a bit over verbose.
I feel like I think it's capturing something with people who talk like that in real life. And I think maybe it's an overcorrection when you have a main character like the Punisher, who in terms of, again, he's narrating a lot, but his actual speech bubbles are few and further in between.
Much, yeah.
So maybe it's kind of offsetting. And I think as well, the contrast as well of the bad guys having all this stuff like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and the Punisher will get him, and blah, blah, the police will do this, whatever. And the Punisher just stoically killing them all.
Yes.
And they're just like, we couldn't, our plans and all that. So maybe it's that. Maybe he's going for that. But I think it's interesting, contrast. Also, villains tend to monologue a lot as well, don't they?
Well, not in real life, but...
Well, they might. I mean, I don't know any of them personally.
In real life, they run for office in the Reform Party.
Well, they certainly monologue a lot, don't they? It's their campaign speeches.
That being said, not about the Reform Party, they are cockwombles.
Yeah.
About the writing. I said it wasn't very well written. I was being glib because there are 2 sides to writing. There is the way that he writes dialogue. And again, I think it's a bit overdense. I think it's a bit oversweary. He loves a slur. I don't necessarily think that's particularly needed in fiction.
Yeah. Again, and that's a larger debate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a larger debate, and it's an issue that I have with his writing specifically.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of a slur.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would agree with you.
I'm not like a, oh heavens, he said a rude word
Heavens
kind
to
of
Betsy.
person.
Or the argument which I don't subscribe to, which is, well, if a writer, unless they are the race they're talking about, if any other writer uses that slur, they must be racist or anything like that.
No, totally. I mean, we've covered examples of people that I think overuse them.
Oh yeah, the Tarantino bar.
Yeah.
When you cast yourself as the character who's doing the swearing, it's like, that's not a good look.
Yeah, I mean, he spent millions of pounds essentially just to give himself a free pass to use the N-word. Fucking
and
ridiculous.
film women's feet.
And film, yeah, absolutely. Like
he's not one note,
but to credit where credit's due, right? The man has a foot fetish, and he has managed to film the feet of Uma Thurman and Margot Robbie in his career. That is impressive.
And he had Uma Thurman's daughter in one of his films, who I think did not get her feet out, but under advice from her mum, Uma Thurman.
Don't get your feet out, because he will be there behind the camera.
You won't even see him.
Anyway, so whilst I don't necessarily, just on a grand sense, I don't like Garth Ennis' approach to dialogue.
Yeah.
I do think he gives good story.
Yes.
And overwhelmingly, I do like the story beats here. So I think the whole subplot, you were talking about that woman who was killing gangsters.
Yeah.
She has been trafficked into the US, probably as a sex worker.
Yes.
And those gangsters stole and killed her baby?
Yeah, when she tried to escape, they killed her baby and sent her like an email attachment to the social worker who was trying to help her, and yes.
Yeah, so I'm a new parent.
Yeah, and I told you can just skip that issue.
Right, yeah, so I didn't read that issue, so I don't really know how that went down.
Exactly, yeah.
And again, that's super fucked up. That doesn't need to be in a comic book. Yep. However, in terms of how Garth Ennis gets between story beats and the kind of stories that he writes, you're into that. He does give good story.
Yeah.
And he does here. I don't think, this is not your classic find a MacGuffin, kill a bad guy comic book story. It has more to it than that.
It's actions creating other actions. It's very much a this causes this kind of story, which is good.
And again, I don't think there's anything particularly interesting or spectacular happening. but it has a solid plot.
Yeah.
There is a plot, it is solid, he moves through it well.
Yeah, and when you think about what is the goal of the story, like with any story, the goal essentially is, here's some baddies, here's them doing really fucked up bad stuff to make you hate them, and then what's the word? It's a fancy word for it, and I can't think what it is, the payoff. There's a fancier word for that. The catharsis.
Yeah.
The catharsis is Punisher brutally murders them.
Yeah.
That is the point of the story.
Absolutely.
And I think Ennis was he did a complex enough story that it didn't feel
beat by beat,
like you've said, a plot by numbers.
Well, if you want me to dislike some people, then show them trafficking somebody into sex work and then abducting and killing her baby.
Yeah.
I'll dislike those people.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to see what he was aiming at. And I think you don't have to look very far underneath the surface to see the pulleys and strings there. But it is effective in doing what
simple
you
but
to
effective.
Do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
and we've been proponents of that because there's some writers who go way too over the top complex with stories.
Well, they think they're creating something complex, and actually they're just creating something nonsensical.
Yeah, or messy, or
yeah. Whereas this is neat and tidy, and it does the job. It's a hammer and a nail.
Yes, exactly.
He needed two pieces of wood being put together. He needed a protagonist who we wouldn't like unless we were seeing him kill bad guys that are worse than him.
Exactly.
And we needed some bad guys that were worse than him. And he took a hammer and a nail and knocked those two things together. And that's what we have.
And then what's interesting as well is when you look at, because when it got to the point of the baby being killed, then I look at that and go, was that really necessary? And I think he could have used other plot points for the same purpose, but you can't deny that it does serve a purpose in that it's the reason the woman is approaching these mobsters with a gun.
Yeah.
Because if she was just trying to escape, she'd just run as far away in the other direction. But that gives her a reason to want revenge on the people, and that's how she gets in the crosshairs of the Punisher.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Like she wouldn't have a reasonable
something that would make you go up in a suicide mission to attack some mobsters.
Yeah.
Like,
and some could argue that, she could have made a friend while she was being trafficked and she had been killed. But then, you were already killing somebody who's been sold into slavery for sex work. Why not kill a baby? Do you know what I mean? It's like, either way, you have characters who are doing something fucked up. You might as well, particularly if you're Garth Ennis, just crank the dial on that one.
And I think he does. Again, I think he finds that the most interesting thing to write is when things are extreme. I think that's why he does it. I don't think he's trying to push buttons intentionally. I think that's just why he thinks it's the most interesting thing to write.
And I think as a non-parent, speaking as a parent,
yep.
As a non-parent, not you, Ryan,
yeah, non-parents,
but yeah. No, people who don't have kids wouldn't even realise.
The truly happy, you can call us.
I don't know that that's true.
All right, the ones with more free time.
Yeah.
That's undeniable.
Yeah, that is undeniable. But people without children maybe can't even realise just how realistic her response to what happened is.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, again, this is the kind of stuff that tells you, like, it's not hard to imagine. Maybe you can't picture it to the same level, but it's not hard on just a basic human fun. Like, humans care about their children.
Or
if something bad happens to them, that's really bad.
I mean, they always say, if you're faced with a bear, one of the things to double check is,
are there cubs nearby? Or if you see a bear cub, back the fuck away with the same fear as if it was a fully grown adult, because the mum is probably nearby.
Yeah. And you don't want to fuck with a bear that's got a cub.
Exactly.
You don't want to fuck with somebody's kids.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely grim and grotesque. I wonder if Garth Ennis was a parent. I wonder if he even really realised what he was fucking
Shall
with.
we check?
Yeah, I'd be intrigued, because that really changes it for me. Like, did he know the extent of what he was doing and saying?
No surprise, he is an atheist who feels disdain towards religion. Just need to read Preacher for that.
Yeah, that tracks.
It doesn't say, from Wikipedia, it doesn't say anything about kids, so we don't know. There's no widely reported details that he has children, so let's assume he doesn't.
Yeah. So yeah, he didn't even really know potentially the extent to which what he was doing there was as accurate as it was.
Yeah.
Because again, it's one of those things that you can understand it intellectually, Obviously, I think everybody understands it intellectually. People love their kids and will go to great lengths for them.
Yeah.
But man, until you've had a little baby and it fucking looks up at you and you're like, I am the only thing standing between you and impending death, you can't really understand it.
Yeah.
Like it's a very singular feeling. And
which is why when I read it, I was like, I don't think Jamie should read this issue.
Don't think, yeah. I don't think somebody with a fucking 5-month-old baby should be reading this issue.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I did skim it.
Yeah, well, that was the problem. It's like after you were like, do you mean this? And I was like, yep, that's what I was trying to protect. That's what I was trying to protect you from.
But I didn't have to read it in detail.
Yeah.
I did just get to skim it. And so I think overwhelmingly he creates a story that is tight in all the right places. I really like the character of the social worker.
Yeah, I thought she was great.
I actually think she was quite well written.
Yeah, and she reflected the Punisher in a good way, where it's like, here's someone who's kind of exasperated with how little they've been able to achieve against this corrupt system of sex trafficking, human trafficking, whatever. But also, you kind of expect, and I've seen it in some Punisher stories, where someone on the other side, a civilian, for lack of a better term, or even a policeman or whatever, will kind of be like, you know what, the system's fucked. Punisher, you get to killing, you know? She does technically do that, but she's at no point happy with that choice at all. Like, it was out of necessity, and she hates that it's come to this.
Yeah, there's that cop who's like, personally, I'm pro-Punisher, but we're going to do all these things to make it look like we're trying to catch him.
Yeah, but then, and that stuff I find very interesting, because the police captain, or the police, obviously if a Punisher existed who... The thing about the Punisher that's fantastical is that someone could be as capable as he is.
Yeah.
The capability to eliminate the people deemed to be evil, right?
Yeah.
And being able to do it without any civilian casualties or collateral damage or hurting the police or anything like that.
Yes.
So for a character like that to exist, I think the police would be overwhelmingly in favor of that person, even if they couldn't voice it outright. They do also do that kind of with Batman as well. Like, what's that light coming from the GCPD building? It's like, oh, it's just a malfunction. Don't worry about it. It looks exactly like a bat. Like, yeah, no, it's just incredible coincidence. Don't worry about it. So, but it's an interesting take with the Punisher, because it's easier to back Batman because he doesn't kill anyone.
Yeah.
It's more interesting, I think, seeing the police back the Punisher, you know? And it makes sense. They're like, yeah, we're not that bothered, but then being co-opted by this corrupt policeman who is like, actually, he's making you look like fools. So the two policemen that he disarmed and left relatively unscathed, like scratches at most or whatever, bruised egos, suddenly he's like, actually, we need to get fake casts and neck braces on them.
Yeah.
We need to parade them in front of... This happened in issue 2. We need to have a news conference. We have
I saw it all.
Yeah. We have to say that he assaulted them, and that's why we have with no tolerance to the Punisher anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a great story beat, because he's being advised to do that by the sex traffickers who he's in the pocket of.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, like, with an art thing, the guy who receives the call from the sex traffickers is like, all right, I'll help you with this. It looks just like a normal office. And then the last big panel is, oh, it's the police station. He's a policeman. I think that was a fun reveal for art and story.
Yeah, and this is one of the things where I actually quite like Garth Ennis.
He's capable of being a really good writer.
Well, it's just that there's certain elements of him highlighting how corrupt society is. Same with the boys. Who's the fucking Superman equivalent of the boys? Homelander.
Yeah.
Like, Homelander's this awful, corrupt, right-wing character. But he is ultimately the person that should be the hero of that story, and he went out of his way to create something that subverts that. And so, I'm being glib in saying that it's just there to be shocking, because it isn't. Garth Ennis isn't just a grease merchant. There is more to it, and I was maybe being a bit glib at the start because I don't particularly like the Punisher. Because one of the things that he is very good at is subtly speaking up to power.
Yeah,
he's very good at highlighting the ways in which the world is corrupt, because that's quite a realistic way in which the world is corrupt.
Yeah.
The police being in the pocket of organised crime, that happens.
Yeah. And
in America, certainly.
And probably in England as well, I'd imagine. But also, even in them turning the blind eye to the Punisher. Like, even though we're, like, as the reader, if you're choosing to read Punisher comics, you're probably on the side of the Punisher, whether or not you condone whatever he's doing. So when you see the police being like, look, we kind of turn the other way when it's the Punisher because he's actually doing us a favor, that is a form of corruption in itself as well. It's not, they're not necessarily being bribed or anything, but they're still not doing their duty.
I mean, they're moderating a murder, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So, or they're condoning it through inaction. So it's still an element of corruption, whether it's one way or the other. It's just that as a plot point, it's now going against the protagonist of the story and it becomes an obstacle for him, which I think is interesting. But it is all corruption in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think in terms of the actual Punisher character, because again, I've made some notes about why I find him interesting, right?
Okay, go for it.
And I think what I find about him interesting here and why this is...
That was syntactically interesting, but continue, sorry.
What I find so interesting about him in this story, got there in the end, is you said earlier about him being like a kind of like almost a right-wing fantasy living out a fantasy of right-wing.
He's a right-wing masculine power fantasy. Sure. I would argue that he is.
Yeah, no, and I think on a surface level, I think he does appear that way. But I think deep down, or not even deep down, I think as soon as you scratch under the surface, there's a lot of stuff he does in this that really gets across the fact that what it comes down to is he is not doing this because he thinks it's right or good. And I think that's kind of the clearest message, as opposed to the people who, like you say, I think people look at the Punisher and think, this is how we need someone to just sort it out and, just handle the mess and take out the trash and all that.
Make America great again.
Yeah. But the Punisher himself, he does not view what he's doing as right or good at all. Quite the opposite. And the points he makes, like when he first sees this girl and the trouble she's in, he says to himself in the narration, not like me to play White Knight.
Yeah.
So he doesn't think of himself, again, if any other actual hero would just step in and not even think about it. He's remarking like, I don't normally do this. And when he's talking to her, I thought at one point when he said, hey, the police will be here soon. And she's like, no, police. He's like, oh, illegal? Like, well, that's tough. I thought for a second he was like, oh, is he just like, it feels like, oh, you're an immigrant, then I can't help you kind of thing. I think what he meant was, he was like, oh, that's why you don't want the police.
Yeah. No,
I had
he was like, that's a tough position to be in.
But for a second, I was like, is he anti-immigrant?
Weirdly, I read that the right way the first time.
Yeah. It took me half a second where I was like, wait, oh, right, okay.
He's not saying, oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that's a tough situation to be in.
I understand, yeah. But as well, when he's talking to her, he's kind of trying to be like, look, just get out of here. Like, just get out of it, whatever. His interest in helping her only peaks when she's like, there are others. And then he's like, oh, you can help me get to more of these guys or kill more of these guys. So on the one hand, I think what Ennis does so well with this is he skirts the edge between unfeeling serial killer and good person, or some good in him. I think he constantly jumps on the other side, because then when he's hearing about what these men did to this woman, he's not just like, okay, here's some men that I can put to my list and I will, I'll kill them as soon as I get a chance. He's like, these are going to the top of my list because they are fucking evil. So he's impacted by what they've done,
Well, yeah, as anyone would be, but the power fantasy comes in then that he goes and kills them instead of bringing them to real justice.
Oh yeah, and the character is still a vengeance character, and a power fantasy character. But what I'm saying is, he's not just that, or he's not all that.
Well, no, I think he is. I think you've almost succinctly made my point for me.
But I think if he was, I think that power fantasy character, in my opinion, what my views on that are, is that would be and he's making the city right again by finally being the one to step up and finally do something about this problem. The Punisher in this says, I think it's in the third issue when he's talking to the social worker, he's like, because he kind of, she implies I'm fine if you kill these people. The Punisher's the one who's like, this isn't going to change anything. This isn't going to stop anything. This isn't going to save anyone.
So even he knows that what he's doing is...
Yeah. Whereas I think that power fantasy thing, I think it does have an element of we're going to make things better by someone finally doing what needs to be done. Do you know what I mean? That's just my opinion of it.
I suppose on some level, but on the other level, guy murders bad guys.
But then, and I think that is more of a universal, doesn't everyone want to see the like evil worst people like get their comeuppance. Like, I'm not saying it's a thing that should be, you know, condoned or supported, but I think the human desire to see that happen.
Do you think death is that, though?
I think
the bringing forward of the inevitable, the bringing forward of the natural inevitable end of a human life. Do you think that's a valid punishment?
I think the idea, no, I don't think it's an actual valid punishment. But what I'm saying is I think it's a very human thing to want to see the wicked punished. I'm not saying that's something we should indulge, but I think it is something that exists in all people. Like, how much you feed it or not. And I think that's the appeal of the Punisher, is here's a very capable killer and he's killing bad guys. And yeah,
it's a right-wing fantasy.
But I don't think it's just right-wing. I think the difference is if right-wing is if you're someone who thinks that should actually be actual policy or like actually change the world in it. I think it's a very universal human thing to indulge in that on a fantasy level. I think the difference between like the people you're talking about are the people who actually think that's a good idea. We need a Punisher. Like, that's the wrong
or the cops
thing.
and then the cops who have his logo tattooed on them.
Yeah, exactly. And I've said I'm a Punisher fan who thinks that's fucking awful that they're doing that. But I think there is a universal thing where people like this fantasy of evil people getting their comeuppance, you know?
Yeah, but then for one man to be doing that, I think inherently that makes it a power fantasy.
Maybe, but again, a universal appeal power fantasy. I mean...
Yeah, but to say that it has universal appeal doesn't detract from that being exactly what it is.
Yeah, but I think you're attaching the right-wing element to it, and that's why I'm thinking is the difference between like what everyone can enjoy about it versus what people who, like you say, the right-wingers who think this is something we should actually do, you know? I think there's quite a difference between those points.
I'll be honest with you, I'm quite a daydreamy child. Not something I daydream about on a regular basis. It's just not a fantasy that I engage in.
It's not a daily fantasy thing. But in fiction, you like to see the bad guys get their comeuppance, right? Like, that's quite a common universal human experience with fiction. I'm not saying it's...
I think that's definitely... I think that's a really logical place to go for somebody who reads a lot of comic books.
I think in all of fiction, isn't it? Like...
No, God, no. I think
so all of fiction is a stretch. So I'll take that back. I think it's a very core component of fiction, like in a lot of stories, the protagonist and the antagonist. And I think the stuff that appeals to the most people is where the protagonist wins, the antagonist suffers for being bad. Like, that is a thing.
Yeah, I suppose in very broad stroke.
Yeah, and this is like this concentrated. Like, this is like diluted to its absolute base thing.
I suppose what makes it a power fantasy, the undoing of the antagonist here isn't necessarily their own hubris, any other factor except for the white man with a gun.
It is kind of their own hubris because
because it's Frank Castle's excellence at murder,
but
it's his caliber at murder that catches these people and kills them, right? And so the catalyst here for the bad guy getting their comeuppance is always Frank Castle.
Not necessarily, because in the story, the bad guys that are here, the three main ones, I can't remember their names, but you've got the older guy, the father, who is sadistic, whatever. Got the son, who is he's less sadistic, still does all this evil stuff, but he's more the what's best for business kind of guy, and then his wife, right? And Punisher makes a point he says he tracks the gang down and the father towards the end at the house, one of their houses brothels, right? And he says if the son had still been alive, because by this point he'd strung up his intestines to a tree or whatever, then they would have moved already and I wouldn't have been able to find them. But because he's dead, the one who is making reasonable decisions, and the reason he's dead is because he was awaiting for his father to come and kill him, because he had let slip the address to their rival gang or whatever to attempt the father's life. So because they were warring between themselves, that was the opening. The Punisher managed to find their location, kill the son, and then the others were more at risk because the son was the one who was moving them around and keeping them from being tracked because he knew the Punisher was after them.
Okay, so there's some holes in their defenses that the Punisher has been able to exploit.
Castle is still very capable of killing, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah, but ultimately, I just think it's hard to argue this is anything more than a power fantasy.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But I think, again, it's a more universal thing than you saying it's just a right-wing power fantasy. I think the right-wing thing is a very surface-level reading of it, but I think there's still some appeal to... It's that thing as, like, people who play violent video games. It's not because they actually want to be violent or violent in real life, but there's still, like, a fucking, baser Neanderthal, like, response in people to indulge in that kind of stuff in a way where you're not hurting anyone or there's no repercussions in real life,
Like violence at a safe distance.
Sure.
Yes, I think that stands, but I think you've become fixated on the fact that I used the term right wing at one point, because what we were originally discussing is whether or not this is a power fantasy.
Okay, I agree with you. It's a power fantasy because it's taking back power from the people who would normally be doing cruel things to people without any repercussions or anything. This is a story. It's like, hey, what if there was a guy who was even worse than them and was killing them?
Yeah, and exclusively
and same thing with
murdered
Dexter
them.
as well.
Yeah, with Dexter.
Yeah,
which is something else you're a big fan of, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also why I made a video why they're both serial killers. The Punisher and Dexter are both serial killers, and they're how making them a protagonist, like the weird kind of rules they need to follow for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's very comic booky.
Yes.
And I sometimes struggle with that, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I really love that things are just very much like entrenched in the tropes of comic books. I find it a little bit one note. I think that's the issue with it, and I think that should be the takeaway.
I think this is
it can be. Do you not think it's a bit one note?
No, but the reason why I don't is, and this is a more universal thing, I think that if you like a thing, if you like what is its core, then you like the small differences, because you're getting the same thing again with enough difference. There's, that it seems different from story to story. Like I was reading this volume, so I see the differences in the different story arcs. Like I said, the one before, the reason we picked this one, again, is the most quintessential Punisher story.
Yeah.
The one before this, he's going to Russia to get like a save a girl who's been injected with a sample of a biovirus and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then in the one before, there's a big gang war between like Irish mob and Jamaican mob and some other stuff, and like Punisher's kind of caught in the middle. So there are like, and that's just two, like of the entire run.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say universal is, I think what's universal is, if you like the thing they're offering, the basic thing, then you appreciate there's the little differences. If you don't like the core thing, it all looks the same. That's the difference.
Yeah, potentially.
Like, what's kind of like, there's types of music where if you like the music, you like all the different, or not, you have your favorite songs in amongst the genre. If you don't like the genre, it all sounds the same.
Yeah.
Like, all sports looks the same to me, pretty much. Like, each sports. Like,
invasion sports.
Every game of football looks the same to me.
Oh,
but
yeah.
to football fans, they're like, oh, that was an awful game. Oh, that was an amazing game. Like, even out of whether their team won or not. And it is that thing.
Yeah,
where
I
if
can
you like
appreciate
it,
that.
You see the nuances because you like it.
I think this is why I've struggled to talk about it, because
Sure.
it's sort of like I didn't like it, but I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I didn't like it. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I think a lot of my criticism is really valid.
Yeah.
And I think my core criticism on why I don't particularly like this character is valid.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think it'd be worse thing if the Punisher was a more popular character. Like, as in, like, if more people are like, yeah, the Punisher. Like, because I think, again, not enough people. There are too many people who like the Punisher for the wrong reasons.
This was the issue I had when Rick and Morty got really popular. Because you watched season 1.
I started getting to a season 2 when that came out.
But I remember you saying, I've been watching this cartoon, it's really good, you should watch it.
Yeah.
And I banged through season 1 and 2 and was like, this is really fun. And then by the time season 3 came out, there was people...
It peaked in popularity.
And there was people like jumping up and down on the counter at McDonald's because they wanted the Szechuan sauce.
With that thing, I always think, because I thought the same as you, like, oh, people are going mental over Rick and Morty. Was that just like a couple of isolated instances, and then the narrative became Rick and Morty fans are going crazy at McDonald's?
I don't think it's that wasn't my point. My point was that the conversation about Rick and Morty became like, oh, I'm smart because I like Rick and Morty.
Yes.
And what people didn't realize is that you're not supposed to identify with Rick because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And they were really missing the point because it got so popular, it got into the hands of people who were like, oh, I'm smart.
You have to be the copy pasta. You actually have to be really intelligent to understand all the jokes of Rick and Morty. Like,
yeah, and they thought it was because it was the science stuff, and actually what they were missing was the nuance of the fact that Rick is kind of like a teenage boy's idea of what...
Like the militant atheist kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're 13 years old, you've watched Bill Hicks, and now you're a militant atheist.
Or George Carlin, or even like Richard Dawkins. Like,
you've encountered your first sort of humanist cult, your first humanist lecture.
Yeah.
And now you think everybody who likes religion is a fucking moron.
Yeah. I think Dan Harmon summed up pretty well when he was talking about like the messaging of the show. The messaging of the show to him is basically nothing matters if you break everything down, nothing matters. So there's no point doing anything or even living. But the key to life is to accept that nothing matters and then pick things to care about. And that's the problem with Rick, is he can't pick things to care about because he's so smart that he can rationalize nothing mattering, to the point where he doesn't even hold family members valuable enough that he can just like jump to a different dimension when shit goes bad, and that's my new family now, kind of thing. And the show addresses that.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? And
but people just take the surface level of nothing matters, and they don't look further.
And therein is the problem with The Punisher, is that it is a power fantasy. That is exactly what it is at its core. But you have to be able to read it with a responsible and mature enough mind to say that, this is kind of the natural... This is what would come out of us indulging this fantasy. Isn't this mental? Right?
And that's why I was making the point that I think the surface level people would think would enjoy this power fantasy and think that it's something that would help in real life or something of that ilk, right? And why I find this so interesting is the Punisher himself acknowledging that it won't help. And in that way, he's kind of tacitly implying, I do this for me. Like, that's... Yeah. And I think that's what, again, I find that really interesting. I find it really compelling character. Someone who doesn't think of themselves as a hero, but also sometimes inevitably does... maybe hero stuff is a bit strong, but he does save people. The woman, the main woman, like he keeps her safe and gets her help. The women in the brothels, like he calls the social worker and has her come and, get them somewhere safe, which he didn't need to do. But at the same time, he's also acknowledging he's not doing this to help people. And what I said at the point was
he likes it.
The edge that Ennis writes him on of, does he actually give a shit about anyone else? Is he just doing this for him? Or does he at least go out of his way to help people when they're in his path?
Yeah.
Like, his mission is not to help people at all. Like, we know that 100%. But again, he's like calling up the social worker, having her come out, but has a plan puts mattresses in the van to take the women back, and he's going to move her car. And then another interesting point, when he's at that house and he's killed all the son and his people, and he's clearing up, and then the dad turns up with his gang. Punisher hides under the what's it called, the deck, the harbor, you know what I mean? And he says, like, I probably could have hid under there and they wouldn't have known where I was. They would have assumed I'd left and they'd have gone. Like, but my next target was like 30 feet away from me. And I thought, fuck it, I'll give it a go. Yeah. And afterwards he goes, shouldn't have done that. Yeah. So and he says, like, I took the bait. I'm only human. Like, I went for the thing I shouldn't have. I knew I shouldn't have done it. It was a mistake.
I should have hung tight and killed him later.
And that in itself is very anti-Punisher, because Punisher is normally quite meticulous and well planned and thought out. And that part, he's kind of admitting, like, hey, like, even I make mistakes sometimes. Yeah. Like,
I just love killing.
I just love killing so much. Like, but I could have killed him later. I would have. And him acknowledging his own foils as well. Again, very opposite of the the surface level power fantasy view is that he never makes mistakes. He's always the man. He's always the cool. The only time he's off his game is if, like, there's a bigger, harder, stronger person and he has to, like, rally back. This time he's like, I made the mistake. Like, everything would have been fine. I fucked up. So that stuff like that is the details that, again, if you're not into it, you're not doing this kind of look in, Well,
I mean, I'm quite good at picking details out of things. And again, I'll give credit where it's due. Like, the story beats were good. It's well drawn. The story's well constructed. I could see I can see what he's going for. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I can see what he's going for at all times. I just think that this character in general is a bit of a miss.
A miss for you, which is absolutely fair enough. Yeah. And I'd be interested to see if we did some other Punisher stuff in the future. Like, we're going to leave it a while, obviously, especially after this bloody story. But in the future, if we do some other Punisher stuff, would you want to do some stuff by some, like, see who else is considered to have done great stories and see how it compares?
Do you know what? I would happily read more Garth Ennis Punisher.
Okay, fair
enough. I don't hate it.
All right,
that's the thing. There's not like I came up top and said.
At least there was stuff to talk about.
Yeah,
that's the number one thing we always say. Like
I came up top and said, I don't dislike it particularly. I think the story's quite well constructed. I think the art's pretty good. I think he had a bit of a knack of getting to the core of what some characters in this would have done and the way they would have behaved, most notably that social worker. I think he really nailed down what somebody in that role would have and should have and could have done.
I think the relationship between the two police characters, despite all the slurs that they used around each other, was still a really good relationship. They had each other's backs, but they were also arguing and calling each other out for things they were saying.
There's always plenty to recommend in Garth Ennis' writing. I've never read anything by him and gone, oh, this is god awful.
Yeah. It would help if you. It does help when he's writing a character you actually like James Bond or the Preacher series.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and also somehow he also makes little bits of levity in a character like this. Very few and far in between.
Yeah,
but like when he's talking to the social worker when he first speaks to her again, and she's like, "Oh, the Punisher, you've come back to kill me," and his first response is, "Why? What have you done?"
Yeah.
Not even like, "I'm not here to kill you." His first question is, have you done something?
Yeah,
that requires me to kill you?
Well, because if there's a reason I should kill you, this
I
is
will
a good
right now.
opportunity.
I won't even hesitate.
No scruples.
No, exactly. And then also when he's planning on getting the information out of the Sun, and he's acknowledging Moldovan or Albanians, but he's like, these people grew up in war. Like my normal stuff that scares people here in America is not going to fly for them at all. I need to get creative. And it cuts to him in a library reading a book on basic human anatomy. It's like the scariest person to pick up that book is the Punisher.
Yeah, totally. I clocked that as well.
Exactly. And also the end, and like you were saying about the power fantasy stuff, if I'm going to feel it at all in this story, it's going to be when the old man gets tied to a chair and set on fire.
Yeah.
And him recording it on a videotape for the corrupt police officer to take back over to Europe to give to the other human traffickers.
Yeah.
And he literally films the guy being burned and he's cursing him out and everything. And then he just pops into the frame of the video and goes, "Stay away from America," basically. Or something like that, like stay out of New York or something. And it's like that I felt in that moment, because I hated that old man character so much, and hate generally like what they've shown, what actually happens in real life, the human traffickers do. I'm like, good. Like I'm on board in the fiction. I've bought into the fiction enough that I can enjoy this. You
liked
thing.
Watching old man Andrew Tate burn.
Yeah, set on fire and being sent to to the other Andrew Tate in his homeland.
Yeah,
here's a warning to stay away, kind of thing. Like I think that's good.
Should we bleep out Andrew Tate? Just lest we... No, I don't want to summon him.
He's man enough. He can add the right love jokes. Like, we know that. Like, Elon Musk made... made jokes legal again on Twitter. Or X now, as it's called.
Yeah, I mean, it was a funny joke. I was quite proud of it.
Hey, I think we should leave it in.
Oh, fuck. I just don't want to summon his idiots.
I mean, look, if they're adding to the views and the downloads.
No, we don't want to summon the Manosphere because they're fucking kooky.
If you're an Andrew Tate supporter, at least leave us a comment. Doesn't matter what it says.
Well, do you know, it's so funny because I found out recently, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before.
I mean, now's the time.
I was already doing the podcast when I met my partner, right?
Yes.
And when I met my partner, I mentioned that I made a podcast. She ghosted me. And it turns out that she had to do a recce. She had one of her and her friends double checked out the podcast, because when you tell a woman that you make a podcast now, she just assumes that you're a raging misogynist.
And then her friends were like, other than a weird fixation with topless Dick Grayson, he seems fine.
That all happened after we met. That wasn't a feature of the podcast yet.
That's why you started revealing these inner desires.
No, her friend was like, it's just him and his nerdy friend from high school talking about comic books. It's fine.
Oh, glad I could help with that.
She was like, he's not a raging misogynist. You don't need to proceed with caution.
And I think that's as good a place to leave it as any. So all we'll end with, on a little note at the end, is a preview for what we're doing the next week, because I've got a physical copy of it in my hand here.
Oh my god! Because we really struggled to find this, didn't we?
Yeah. So basically, next week we are covering, at Jamie's request, the character Captain Britain, who I've not read anything by, so it should be interesting for me. But it was even more interesting when I was like, oh, who's written the best Captain Britain stuff? Turns out, one bloody little underground writer that people might not have heard of, a guy called Alan Moore.
It's an Alan Moore episode, baby! We need to double check what number the last full Alan Moore episode was. How many episodes we've gone without doing an Alan Moore comic? Because it's been a while.
I think it was Superman, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow.
And what number? That was episode 118, 118.
April last year. So it's about just over a year.
It's been a year.
We're now due for another yearly Alan Moore comic.
So can I see?
So I had to get a physical version of this because for some reason it is not on Marvel Unlimited.
No.
It's on no online distributor for whatever reason. So luckily it was on eBay for about £10.
Oh wow.
For a hardback cover version.
It's so ugly. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to do Captain Britain. Can we instead of using my music for the outro, can you get like a military band playing the national anthem?
I mean, I haven't got the national anthem, but if we want a military style music, then I've got some right here.
Thank you for listening. Brian makes YouTube videos. I do stuff on the internet. Find us both. Leave a comment. Subscribe. Tell us how British we are. I don't know, but thank you. Goodbye.
And if this was a good idea, write to us at comiclater@gmail.com to tell us why.
Yeah, great idea. We've done it.
God save the king.
God save the king.